All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on the future of payment technology. This is Christina Cardoza, news editor of SC Times. Before we get started, I have a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. First, if at any time you have questions about or during the presentation, you may submit them using the control panel's question tab. Secondly, this webinar will be recorded and available on demand through the sctimes.com website in about 24 hours after the event. Here at SC Times, we've been writing about new ways developers can keep up with today's modern world. And with APIs touching almost every part of the digital business, developers need easier ways to manage the complexity. Today's webinar will talk about how access to usable and scalable payment APIs can simplify the integration process, what EMV integration has to do with it, and how developers can create an omni-channel payment experience. Here to discuss this further is Perry Tatulis, Vice President of Strategic Partnership at Transnational Payments. Perry has more than 15 years of experience in the electronic payments industry, spending the majority of his time working with partners, software vendors, and developers. In his current role, Perry consults regularly on complex payment integrations and strategic partnerships. He is also recognized as one of the top authorities on all aspects of electronic payments, payment technology, and security. Now to get things started, I will turn it over to you, Perry.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. We're really excited to shed some light on how payments technology has evolved and being able to pass on some of our insights to the developer community. So as we go along here, I would encourage you to submit any questions that you have. We certainly value and appreciate everyone's time today. And we'll address every question directly to anyone who submits one. So hopefully we see a lot come through. So my team and I have spent the better part of the last 15 years working with and consulting startups, consultants, venture capitalists, web developers, accounting firms, and financial institutions on the complexities that surround payments and payment technology. Since 2015, the payments industry in the United States has experienced crazy historic change between new PCI guidelines and the enforcement of EMV, particularly that shift in fraudulent card liability that's created vast amounts of confusion and frustration in the developer community. Technology, as I think many of you probably have experienced, has been really slow to catch up, and businesses and softwares have been clamoring for good solutions. Much of what's been produced and available to cutting-edge technology providers like yourselves has just created more frustration and losses of time and resources. On the flip side of that, unfortunately, the demand has prompted new payment technology providers to emerge. And these cutting-edge solutions are now finding ways to eliminate many of those common frustrations and provide tools that add value to your software as opposed to hinder them. So you demand simple and fully functional integrated solutions. So today we'll discuss some key areas of deficiency that we've identified in payments technology, and I'll highlight how new technology is filling in the gaps and creating healthier and more sustainable payments ecosystems. So to keep this relatable, I'd like to profile one of my clients. And this is a well-established cloud-based software. And I chose them because I believe that they encapsulate many of the characteristics that might be on this call today and that you can relate to. And I think their growing pains are going to resonate really well. So they're a venture capital-backed business-to-consumer cloud-based software. They started as an e-commerce platform. And originally they did an integration with Stripe like so many new softwares do, just due to simplicity purposes. Now, as their product began to evolve, so did their ideal client profile. So the early profile of their average user was 1 to 3 users. They're an e-commerce platform, and their average merchant ran $20,000 to $30,000 in annual credit card payments. So as they began to grow up a little bit, and due to a combination of market opportunity and investor demands to expand and grow revenue generation, their profile shifted, and they made a move to go, quote unquote, more up market. And that profile shifted to 5 to 10 users. In addition to e-commerce, they needed to add things like recurring billing and tokenization. and the average processing volume increased to $80,000 to $150,000 annually. So products continuing to evolve, and so did theirs, and that was initiated in large part to large enterprise opportunities. They needed to be able to support multiple merchant accounts with processor disparity, and they needed more price flexibility than what their original integration provided. In addition to that, they needed to add EMV capabilities because they started adding a retail component to their software. They wanted fraud and chargeback mitigation tools, and all of these things became mission critical for their growth. So this partner of ours, they experienced success, and business demands continued to grow, and investors demanded more. So their sales lead, cost of acquisition, and onboarding and support costs were rising rapidly. It became necessary to simplify and reduce setup and onboarding costs, and the need for them to maximize their customers' adoption of payment services. And here's sort of the bow around all of it. They had to increase their monthly recurring revenue that they earned on all of those services. So hopefully this client resonates well with you. So some of you may have already begun to experience or are currently experiencing some of these growing pains. You know, others of you, I think, would be looking forward to going through this type of evolution because it means that you're experiencing some success. So I think it's important, especially if you're in the process of engaging with a new payment technology, to ask some critical questions. So we find that many solutions are very slow to evolve, and immediate needs, and they implement solutions, but they're not long-term solutions. So while others may not do things exactly the way you like to today, you'll be better positioned down the road by looking at and vetting out new technology. Some important questions to ask yourself as you're going through this vetting process, I think are, will this technology scale with industry trends and security standards? Will this technology be easy to work with? So will your developers be spending hundreds of hours developing upfront, and maybe more importantly, countless hours down the road maintaining this solution? Will this technology cause implementation issues at your end users? So is it going to be easy to plug in and easy for your end users to accomplish getting transactions to pass through? Will this technology hold your business and your customers' information hostage? When you're using integrated payment technology, there's a lot of really valuable data that gets plugged into that, and oftentimes those technology companies will use that to their advantage to help them retain clients, and it just makes it more difficult for you to move. Will it provide your customers with great fees, great service? If there's interaction between your customers and that technology or payment processor, are they going to represent your brand well and not make you look bad? Some additional questions, if you already have integrated payment products, could be, by not making a move, by not adding this technology, am I giving my competitors an advantage that I'm not giving to myself? And will that provider continue to improve and support and enhance their product to keep up with industry and business demands? So while we were in the process of product development with our solution, a good developer friend of mine, he made a comment, and it really sort of stuck with me. And he said, modern web development is about integrating multiple products into one environment seamlessly. So this comment was made in the context while he was adding EMV chip capability to his software. And he went through many trials with other solutions, and none of them worked well for him because he couldn't get them, and he's a brilliant developer, he couldn't get them to work cohesively with everything else that his system did beautifully. So when we talk about old technology, we've observed that much of what's been available in solutions, payment solutions, there's a lot of bolted-on features that have been thrown together in this attempt to satisfy very immediate developer and customer needs. This has been very evident with integrated EMV. So the immediate and reactive reaction of some payment technology providers has led to very chaotic and premature implementation of just inferior solutions that we see are plaguing the payment technology market. The liability shift in 2015, it moved much faster than integrated technology did. So processing networks were slow to produce documentation that would enable existing payment technologies to add the ability to accept chip transactions via point of sale. So payment technology that serves e-commerce business, they were obviously less affected by all of this, but retail software was and still is in many cases scrambling for a great solution to offer their customers. One of the biggest areas of frustration that impacted our client, and maybe, hopefully, I would imagine some of you, was how could they seamlessly connect retail EMV into their software? And early solutions for this, and most still today, they require this physical software, this physical connection to be downloaded onto computers running transactions, which is contrary to what cloud-based softwares are. Or they use a common static IP address that make that connection between hardware and software. And if that makes any sense to you, then you'll understand what I'm talking about, what some of those complications are. So both of those methods accomplished early on semi-integrated or quote-unquote out-of-scope payments for EMV, which is necessary given the complexity of EMV transactions. But they caused numerous installation hurdles and are very susceptible to ongoing connectivity issues. So a big complaint that we've heard so many times over and over while conducting developer interviews is that while on paper connecting hardware, EMV chip and pin hardware, to cloud-based software through a common static IP address looks really good, but it doesn't translate well into the real-world application, and it doesn't work well in a business's environment. And that method of connection, it's plagued with connectivity issues, which, if you're a software, this strains your service desk and creates really poor new and existing customer experiences. So moving into new products, new integrated payment products, let's call these built after 2015. These have been designed with the latest semi-integrated EMV technology. So because new solutions have been built from the ground up, they're far more agile than what we'll call legacy solutions. And these emerging integrated products not only allow for semi-integrated EMV to take place, but they have the ability to connect hardware wirelessly by speaking to a common URL. So as long as a device and a software are connected to the internet, transactions and transaction variables can be passed between them. And we believe that this is finally solving that problem of resident software installs or navigating firewalls, which have created so much heartburn for retail software up to now. So this more evolved method of connecting hardware, it also provides, sort of by default, more of an omni-channel experience. So through one simple integration, software can now accept payments via e-commerce, so through a shopping cart or web portal that's customer initiated, card present, EMV, and it gives you access to mobile transactions, all within one really simple API. And previously, this hasn't been possible through a single integration. Minimally, it would have taken 2 or 3. Emerging products have also been able to significantly reduce transaction latency. And we were on a call yesterday with a developer who said some of our clients don't want to adopt chip and pin because it takes too long. And it's been a huge complaint by developers. By utilizing stuff that's out there, quick chip technology and capability, essentially not having to keep the card dipped into the machine where you can put it in and just pull it right out, offering NFC, near-field communication transactions, Apple Pay, Android Pay, etc. We're now seeing some solutions provide EMV, chip and pin authorizations in 2 to 3 seconds, and e-commerce authorizations come through in 5/100ths of a second. So our software partner, who they pride themselves as the top-tier development minds, best in their space, and problem solvers. They were blown away at the simplicity of how new solutions are connecting everything together through one simple JSON-supported API, and are pretty upset that they didn't think of that concept themselves. So that covers the EMV side of it, and that covers the payment side of it. But we know that payments alone now is just not enough. And you as cutting-edge technology providers, you need more value for your time than just payments. And modern businesses demand more out of their technology. And albeit payment technology has generally satisfied the need to accept and manage electronic payments, we know there's just far more components and variables involved in payments than just getting authorizations to go through and depositing funds. So as our partner grew and their customers demanded more, they were put in a position to seek out additional value-added services that operated in conjunction with the payments providers. So for example, it became important, and I'll give you a few examples. It became important for a large or a good percentage of their clients to add fraud mitigation tools. And there's a whole bunch of different fraud mitigation tools available on the market today, and they're great, and they provide early warning and detection of transactions that may be illegitimate and protect merchants and cardholders alike. But these tools almost always operate in a silo of their own and require to be directly integrated into your platform. Oftentimes, it takes multiple APIs to support card present, e-commerce, ACH, tokenization, recurring billing. And these are all very common functionalities. But even if it takes, even one of those solutions needs to operate on its own, there runs the risk of being a crack in communication, and ultimately is going to require you to build and maintain connectors so it all works nicely for the end user and just creates more things for you to think about as you update your system. One big problem that we've also found is a lot of payment solutions are not processor agnostic and only allow for one merchant account per gateway or per instance, as opposed, and this has posed many issues for our client in particular, and we hear this a lot. As our client went up market, their need to accommodate their customers' existing processing relationships became very important. Far too many gateways still and payment technologies are processor specific, and ultimately that doesn't necessarily put you or your customers in the best position down the road. So the freedom of choice in payment providers, it's not one that you necessarily have to exercise, but you'll be better off and more valuable for your business in the long run if the choice is available. So new technology, we believe, is future-proofing payments. And, just point out a reality, right? So the reality that integrating a payment gateway to facilitate a payment, if you're just an e-commerce platform, so there's no retail side of it, that's almost as much of a commodity as payments processing itself. So if you currently have an integrated payment solution and you don't have the need for EMV, there's not an overwhelming amount of technical reasons to change technology providers. So if you're listening to this and you're a card-not-present software, whatever reasons you have to look at new payment technology, they're probably pretty significant. Now, for any softwares on here that combine e-commerce and retail into one solution, and we see a lot of this now, you can now find payment technologies that are all-inclusive to your needs and maintain the freedom of provider choice. So we have incorporated features like fraud monitoring, EMV tokenization, ACH, recurring billing, more obscure things like the ability to support multiple merchant accounts within one gateway. And all of these things don't only satisfy your needs today, but they add incremental value to your offering. And it's almost saying when we spend the time, we spend the money to work with a payment technology, does it actually add value to what we're selling and to our product? It's going to allow you to grow. These technologies are going to allow you to grow into the future with them without the necessity of adding additional development as you need more functionality. So the current state of your technology is inevitably going to expand. and emerging payment integrations have built themselves to grow with your always evolving product and the always evolving payment industry. And because these were built from scratch, with all these services included, you can expect a more simple to and develop to, and maybe most importantly, maintain API. So we've heard too many times, and generally from upper management, if I give my dev team one more payments integration, they're going to turn on me, and understandably so. I don't know that I've ever spoken to a development team that loves doing payment gateway integrations, but sometimes they're necessary. And having an API that supports JSON and great documentation, that's much more or less a given these days. But having that simple JSON-supported API support multiple features and functions, including integrated EMV, fraud monitoring, etc., is within one. It's pretty rare, and we haven't seen it very often. We find that many older technologies have worked really hard at adding modern elements to old code. And this creates a less than normalized development experience, which adds more time, lots of friction, added strain to servers, and it allows for environments that are much more difficult to maintain and have a greater tendency to break. We still see many solutions that don't support JSON, that unfortunately have limited network certifications or bind you to only one choice of payment provider, which is insanity by today's standards. And many older solutions are not hosted in the cloud, and they're hosted in server farms. And what the byproduct of that has resulted in maintenance outages where one is too many. So we've also seen with some older technologies, they don't have the ability or resources or foundation to quickly adapt to the payments landscape, or they don't have the customer demand to make changes to their platform because it just doesn't affect enough of their clients. So if 90% of their business is e-commerce and 10% of it requires something retail, how motivated are they going to be to add a really great retail component and to keep that piece of it up to date? They're probably not. They're going to spend their time and their resources on what the majority of their users. So bottom line, new technology is going to take significantly less hours to develop and maintain and be much more developer friendly. So this new era of integrated payment products, we've had the luxury of time to study the market and really assess the technology landscape and build better products from the foundation on up. And the result is significantly simplified integrations, code normalization, less friction, server overhead, and improved data integrity. Being hosted in the cloud increases our scalability, our redundancy, speed to market for new and additional products, and it lowers the cost to operate and maintain, and that generally results in a lower cost to you and your end users. And hopefully, and I think we are nearing it or getting there, we're nearing the end of an era of these super proprietary payment technologies and emerging technologies. We seem to understand better than our predecessors that ensuring our clients have options and ownership of data and control, that just makes everyone's offering much more valuable and culminates in a better end user experience. So we've built all-inclusive products to your software payment needs and demands and bundled them into a very simple to implement and maintain API. So, I'll pause for a moment and, say thank you. I hope you're still hanging in there with me. I've covered quite a bit so far, and we're almost to the end. So, I'll say my team and I were really excited to have offline discussions and schedule meetings to help us continue to improve and gain knowledge, as well as you in our mutual product offerings. So now, understanding that there's a less frustrating, a more valuable and easier to connect payment technology available I thought I'd take the last couple of minutes now and define that just a little bit further. So if it hasn't been assumed yet, my company, Transnational Payments, we've developed a new technology that accomplishes everything that we've discussed today and then some. And we've released it to a number of developers to be integrated into their software, some new developers and some that have been with us for a long time. And one of those being the client that I've been referencing throughout this presentation. The response we've received so far has been it's been remarkable, much better than we could have ever expected. So upon releasing this product, we've been measuring a lot of different things, but one metric that we've been analyzing is time. And as you know, if you're in the development world, and I would assume most of you are, you know this far better than I do, it's that developers' time is a very special, very coveted, and very costly commodity. So choosing a new payment integration, it's got to satisfy such a need that you feel that your product's going to be at a disadvantage without it. But it's got to fit into your development roadmap, and very importantly, it's got to fit into your budget. So we've calculated and studied the amount of time it's taken in the beta release of our product, which we call PI, P-I. And we've seen the integration completed in as little as 2 hours, and that's the standing record. And that includes fully functional EMV capability. In contrast, our research has concluded, and I do really believe that we're being conservative with these numbers. I'm sure I'll get some of you to agree and some of you to disagree. But many older products and many of the new ones are taking anywhere from 50 to 140 hours to integrate and test. And depending on if you need chip and pin or integrated, semi-integrated EMV, that can add an additional 80 to 100 hours. So not only can new technology add significant value, but it's going to more easily fit into your budget and timeline, maximizing your return on investment. And we're really talking about the difference between a fully functional and fully baked integration that could cost you at $120 an hour for a developer, $1,000 to $2,000, or with an older platform or a lot of new ones, well over $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So sort of wrapping this up, beyond the massive reduction of time and money required to implement new technology, your software is going to be better positioned for future growth and future success. So that's the conclusion of this. I want to thank all of you today for taking the time with us. We look forward to speaking with as many of you further about the future of integrated payment technology. If you have submitted questions, we are going to reply to those directly to you and answer them. We're also going to send out to everyone who's registered for this webinar a full list of the questions that have been asked and the answers. So please feel free to either send those questions in now, or please contact us directly at sp@gotmp.com. Or if you want to also go to our website and view our technologies API, you can visit our developer page at gotnpayments.com/developers.
Great. Thanks, Perry. Before we go, do you have one final thought or one key takeaway you'd like to leave our attendees with today?
Yeah, sure, Christina. So, there's so many options for integrated payments now, and not one of them is ever going to satisfy every developer's needs. And I've had 1,000 conversations with 1,000 developers, and there's so many just obscure idiosyncrasies to what everybody needs, right? So and I've never really met a software, maybe outside of startups, that have been really excited about integrating payments. Most full-service products can be really complicated to work with, which has driven a lot of softwares out there to products with limited functionality, like Stripe. And that's not an insult, because Stripe is a brilliant, incredibly easy product to integrate with. And I understand we've gotten a few questions about how these new products compare to products like that, which we're going to be happy to answer. So I guess my final thought is, there's a lot of companies that make claims to be easy to work with and do a lot of these things, and they fall short on promises. And we've studied these companies very closely, and we have released a product that we really believe makes good on those promises of being incredibly simple to work with and eliminates a lot of the barriers that a lot of other products have worked up. So, I hope everyone's found this to be valuable today, and I genuinely appreciate everybody at SD Times for giving us the opportunity to speak with everyone.
Great. Well, thank you for a great presentation. Again, that was Terry Tatulis, Vice President of Strategic Partnership at Transnational Payments. And I'd also like to thank Transnational for sponsoring today's webinar, as well as the attendees for joining us today. Until next time, I'm Christina Cardoza with SD Times.